Bardom's Meadow is kind of a weird one. On paper, it's one of the most unique dungeons in the game, specifically because of that second boss. Now, I'll give credit where it's due. When Starblood launched, mechanics were rare outside of high-end content, so for a lot of casual players or players who bought story skip potions, this was their first real exposure to raid-style mechanics in a dungeon. And for that, I get what the devs were trying to do. It's a cool idea. But here's the thing, once you've done it once, you've done it. The novelty wears off fast, and by the third or fourth run, the second boss turns into a chore. No buttons, no rotation, just vibes. It's not even punishing. Mess up and you'll stop moving for a few seconds. It's just awkward. In fact, Bardom feels more like a tutorial dungeon that somehow got lost and ended up in the middle of Stormblood. This would have made way more sense as a Hall of Novice trial. And don't get me started on the wall-to-wall pulls. Tanks to this day will pull everything in sight wearing Heaven's Ward gear, and then get confused when the healer's out of mana, panicking, and desperately trying to decide which DPS to let die first. Spoiler alert, if the tank is melting, you should probably look at their gear. At the end of the day, Bardom's Meadow is one of those dungeons that people either love or absolutely cannot stand. The concept, solid. The execution, that's on you to decide. If you ask a white mage main what their most hated dungeon is, 9 times out of 10, they'll say Brayflox Longstop. This level 32 dungeon has one job, and it's to make new healers cry. Brayflox is the first dungeon where the game expects you to stop messing around and actually learn your role. It's also the point where people finally unlock their jobstone, so please, for everyone's sake, put on your jobstone. This dungeon is infamous for putting pressure on healers. The first boss spams stacking poison debuffs that just keeps getting worse until you Asuna them off, which is great unless your healer never used Asuna in their life and doesn't even have it on their hotbar. At least it's not as bad as the 2.0 days when Scholar back then didn't even have an Asuna until level 40. This dungeon can be a total disaster even today. Brayflox can still go sideways if the tank is pulling everything and the healer is a new sprout. It's also one of the first dungeons where bat positioning actually matters. The final boss lays poison puddles that can quickly make the arena unplayable if people aren't careful, and that's assuming the tank isn't planting the boss right in the middle of all of it. Still, it's kind of a rite of passage. Brayflox teaches you what your job really means. Tanks learn how to use cooldowns, healers learn how to manage mana, and the DPS learns that pulling extra mobs is not in fact helpful. Nowadays, it's not nearly as rough as it used to be, but it's still one of those dungeons that pops up in roulettes and makes you say, uh-oh. The one thing I do like is when Brayflox starts to get chased around and you have to save him. That part is great.